The storm came faster than anyone expected. Winds howled, power lines collapsed, and deep in the forest, a blind boy named Eli was trapped, alone. Alone, except for a retired K9 named Bishop. But what happened next wasn't just a rescue, it was a revelation. Because when Bishop broke away from the familiar path and led Eli into the unknown, they uncovered a dark secret hidden for years, one that would shock the entire town. You're watching Heroic Animals, where real-life stories of courage, loyalty, and instinct come alive. If you believe in second chances and silent heroes, subscribe now and join us on this unforgettable journey. The wind was already howling by the time Eli finished his last cup of cocoa. The 12-year-old boy sat cross-legged on the old wooden porch, a thick wool blanket around his shoulders and a rusted tin mug resting on his lap. He couldn't see the black clouds rolling in above the mountain ridge, but he could feel them. The wind pushed at his face like invisible fingers. The trees groaned. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled low and long, like a warning growl. Bishop shifted beside him. The retired K9 German shepherd let out a soft grunt, his ears twitching at every sound. His muzzle, frosted with age, rested across Eli's boot, as if anchoring them both to the porch. He hadn't left the boy's side since the moment they met. "Storm's coming early," Eli whispered. He couldn't see the dog's nod, of course, but somehow, he felt it. The cabin belonged to Eli's grandfather, a former soldier who had raised him since his parents died in a car crash 5 years ago. They lived off-grid most of the year, no TV, no internet, no distractions, just books in Braille, old vinyl records, and stories told by firelight. It was quiet, it was safe. Bishop was part of that safety. Once a decorated military K9, the dog had been wounded in combat and given early retirement. Eli's grandfather adopted him without question, saying only, "Every warrior deserves peace." But peace didn't mean weakness. Bishop still carried himself like a soldier, even if his pace had slowed. That morning, Grandpa had gone into town for supplies. Back before dusk, he'd promised, "You and Bishop stay put." But dusk came, and Grandpa didn't. Instead, came the storm. The first tree cracked before Eli even heard the rain. It snapped like a gunshot, startling Bishop to his feet. The dog let out a low growl, standing between Eli and the forest as the wind picked up sharply. "Bishop?" Eli asked, his voice barely audible over the sudden roar of wind. The dog didn't bark. He never did unless it mattered. Instead, he bumped Eli's leg, firmly. The boy stood, clutching his walking cane. His heart pounded. He trusted Bishop, always had. When Bishop tugged at the hem of his jeans, Eli followed. They didn't go back inside. The next few minutes blurred into a dance of wind, wet branches, and the roar of rain on tin. Bishop led Eli behind the cabin just as another tree fell, right through the roof of the porch they'd been sitting under. The crash shook the ground. Eli stumbled, but Bishop was already pressing against his side, steadying him. The storm had come fast. Too fast. Eli gritted his teeth, soaked now, but kept moving. Wherever Bishop led, he followed. But then, something strange happened. Instead of heading toward the emergency trail that led back to town, Bishop stopped, sniffed, turned, and began leading Eli the opposite direction, into the forest. "Where are we going?" Eli asked, tightening his grip on the leash. No response, just steady, sure movement. Bishop's paws knew, and Eli chose to trust. The forest trail was slick with mud. Rain slapped the leaves like angry drums. But Bishop was relentless. He tugged when Eli lagged, paused when he sensed him stumble. Every step was deliberate. Then came the smell. It hit Eli like a memory, damp earth, rotting wood, and something metallic beneath it all. Bishop stopped, let out a sound Eli had only heard once before, the deep, guttural rumble of alert. "Is someone here?" Eli whispered. No answer. Only Bishop, standing guard beside something Eli couldn't see. His cane tapped wood, then metal. A trapdoor? Lightning cracked across the sky. Whatever this place was, Bishop had brought them here for a reason. And the storm was only the beginning. The rain poured harder now, thick sheets hammering the canopy above. Every leaf dripped. Every gust of wind bent the trees like bows pulled to their limits. But Bishop stood motionless, his body rigid, nose low to the ground. ears locked on something Eli couldn't see. The boy reached out, his fingers brushing across the shape in front of him. Not rock, not bark, metal, cold and rusted, set flush into the earth like a long-forgotten hatch. His fingers found a handle, bent, but still attached. "Bishop, what is this?" The dog didn't move. He just let out another deep, chest-rattling growl. Not aggressive, protective, like a soldier returning to a battlefield he never meant to revisit. Eli crouched beside the trapdoor, heart pounding. Every instinct told him to wait, to back away, to call for help, but there was no help coming. Only Bishop, only now, and the feeling in Eli's gut, the way the dog was standing. The air around them told him, this wasn't random, this wasn't shelter, this was something buried. He tugged on the handle. It groaned under the pressure, resisting, before finally giving way with a grinding shriek. Damp air rushed upward, thick with the stench of mold, iron, and something darker, something like time itself decaying. Bishop didn't hesitate. He moved to the opening, sniffed once, and descended into the darkness. "Wait," Eli hissed, sliding in after him. His feet hit old wooden steps, slick and soft. Each one creaked under his weight, threatening to give. He gripped the walls, using his cane more as a balance than a guide. Below, the air was colder and silent. The floor beneath them was packed dirt. Eli could feel it squish underfoot. He moved slowly, one cautious step at a time, guided by Bishop's breathing ahead of him, steady and slow, like sonar in the dark. Then his cane tapped something. Wood. A box? No, too big. A crate? Eli knelt and ran his fingers across the surface. Smooth edges, hinges, a chest, locked. Beside it, more objects. Cloth, rolled papers, something metallic. He reached out. Bishop growled, not a warning at Eli. A warning to whatever had once been here. Suddenly, a memory. Eli's grandfather, just a week ago, sitting by the fire, telling an old war story. There were places you weren't meant to return to, son. Places where the wrong people left the wrong things behind. Sometimes, those places come back. At the time, it sounded like fiction. Now, Eli wasn't so sure. He opened the crate. Inside were dozens of papers, some crumbling to the touch, others crisp, preserved in plastic sleeves. His fingers danced over typewritten lines. Official seals, something stamped, confidential. Weapons blueprints, military maps, handwritten logs with initials. And tucked into the corner, a small metal tag. He held it in his palm. It was dented, scorched. Bishop approached and sniffed it, then sat down beside him with a soft whine. Tail still, almost like he recognized it. Above them, thunder roared again, but the storm outside now seemed distant. Eli whispered, "What is this place, Bishop? Why did you bring me here?" The dog didn't answer, of course. But he didn't need to. Because at that moment, Eli realized something chilling. This wasn't a shelter, it was a vault. And Bishop, who hadn't been a working dog in years, had walked straight to it. Without hesitation, as if some part of him had never stopped searching. Then, a sound above. A footstep, heavy, wet. Eli froze. So did Bishop. More footsteps, slow, crunching over leaves, shifting on wood. Someone was standing over the hatch. Someone had followed them. And Bishop's growl turned from alert to a warning. Eli's breath caught in his throat. Footsteps, definite, heavy, wet boots squishing on mud-soaked wood just above the trapdoor. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just listened. Above them, the creak of a board. Then another. Someone pacing. Whoever it was, they knew. Bishop pressed close to Eli's side. The low rumble building deep in his chest. Not loud, not aggressive, controlled. The way trained canines growl when they're ready to act, but holding for command. Eli's fingers gripped the metal tag in his hand, still warm from his touch. Somehow, he knew it mattered. Another sound, this time not footsteps, the soft clink of metal on metal. A weapon? His mind raced. Grandpa had said the mountains were safe, that nobody came out here. But he also said, if Bishop barks at a man without reason, it's because the reason is buried. The hatch above creaked. Dust fell. Then silence. Bishop moved first. He nudged Eli backward, guiding him carefully through the darkness. The old storage room twisted left into another corridor, cramped and musky. Eli kept one hand on the wall. the other tightly wrapped around his cane. Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating thin shafts of light through holes in the wood above. This space was larger than he thought, more than just a root cellar. It was built for hiding things. Or people. Bishop paused, then bolted forward, tugging the leash, guiding Eli toward what felt like a collapsed section of wall. The scent of pine rushed in, an exit. They burst through the rotten frame into the pouring rain. Eli stumbled, but Bishop pulled him up. Paws thudding through underbrush. The cold slapped his skin like needles. The storm hadn't let up, it had gotten worse. Still, Bishop pushed on. He didn't head back to the trail. He went deeper into the forest. Eli didn't ask questions. He couldn't see, but he could feel Bishop's urgency in every stride. Whatever they had found, whatever they had interrupted, wasn't safe. And now, someone knew they had seen it. Minutes blurred. Rain soaked every layer. Eli's boots squelched in mud. His fingers numb around Bishop's leash. He tripped, fell face first into wet leaves. The tag flew from his hand. Panic. He scrambled, searching. Bishop. I dropped. The dog circled back, sniffed once, then nudged the object into Eli's palm. Eli clutched it, heart hammering. He couldn't lose it. Somehow, this tag was the key. A clearing opened ahead. Bishop slowed, sniffing the air. Then he growled, a different tone this time. Defensive, focused. Eli heard the soft sound of movement, something large pushing through the brush. A figure stepped out. Not Grandpa. Not a neighbor. The man from the cabin. Eli couldn't see him, but he could hear the way the man breathed, calm, steady, almost casual. You're a smart boy, the man said, voice smooth like river stones. And that dog still has his edge. Huh? Eli didn't reply. He held the tag tighter. I told your grandfather once. The man continued. Bury something long enough, and even the truth forgets where it's been. A pause. Then Bishop barked, sharp and loud. Not a bark of warning. A bark of recognition. The man froze. You remember me, don't you? He muttered. More to the dog than to Eli. Another bark. Closer now. The man stepped forward, but stopped as Bishop crouched low. Teeth bared. Easy, the man said. I'm not here to hurt you. But Eli already knew the truth. If he wasn't here to hurt them, he wouldn't have followed them through the storm. He wouldn't have been standing above a hidden vault full of secrets. And Bishop wouldn't be ready to lunge. Suddenly, a sound in the distance, a sharp crack. Not thunder. A gunshot. It echoed once, then silence. Bishop barked again, pulling Eli away from the man. Back into the woods. They ran, Eli stumbling through thorns. Branches slapping his face. Breath ragged. But Bishop never let go. And somewhere in the chaos, Eli knew, this wasn't just a storm. This was something buried, something forgotten, and now, something unleashed. The gunshot still echoed in Eli's chest as he and Bishop tore through the underbrush. The rain had softened the earth into a slush that sucked at his boots and slowed every step. He tripped, staggered, caught himself on tree trunks slick with moss. But Bishop never faltered. The K9 was pulling hard now, almost dragging Eli uphill toward higher ground. Behind them, nothing but wind and thunder. But Eli knew, they were being hunted. And worse, the man following them wasn't a stranger. When they finally stopped, it was beneath a large, overhanging rock near the edge of a ridge. Water pooled around them, but the stone gave shelter. Bishop pressed close, licking the scrapes on Eli's hands, breathing heavily but still alert. Eli's entire body trembled, not from cold, but from realization. You remember me, don't you? That's what the man had said to Bishop. It wasn't just a random storm, or a forgotten vault, or a stranger in the woods. This was personal, and Bishop had known it from the start. Eli's fingers reached for the metal tag again. He traced the numbers, raised letters, scratches. But there, near the edge, was something he hadn't felt before, initials. Carved in with something sharp, RJ. He didn't recognize them, but Bishop did. As soon as Eli said the letters out loud, the dog let out a low growl, more than recognition. Anger. There was history in that tag. History Bishop had never forgotten. And someone wanted that history to stay buried. Suddenly, Bishop stood up, tail stiff, nose high. Someone was close. Eli tensed. He could hear it too, just barely. Soft footfalls in the wet leaves. Deliberate, not rushing. Stalking. A voice carried through the trees. Calm, too calm. I don't want to hurt you. Boy, or your dog. It was him. Eli didn't answer. But you have something that doesn't belong to you. That tag? You don't even know what it means. Bishop growled louder now. Eli put a hand on the dog's neck, whispering, "Shush, wait." But inside, he wanted to scream. What did it mean? Why did it matter so much? The man kept talking, moving closer. He was a good dog. Smart, loyal, but too loyal. Your grandfather trained him too well. A pause. And he remembers things he shouldn't. Eli's blood went cold. The man wasn't talking about Bishop like a stranger. He was talking about him like an asset. A threat. A loose end. Something to erase. Eli knew what had to happen. He slipped the tag into his boot. Out of sight. If they were caught, at least the man wouldn't find it. Then he crouched low, gripping Bishop's leash. The dog's ears swiveled, tracking the voice. He was ready. Another step. Closer. Closer. Lightning flashed, and for one split second, Eli saw his outline. A tall man, rifle slung on his shoulder. Rain slicker dripping, eyes scanning. But Bishop saw something else. His body launched. The dog hit the man full force. Teeth flashing, growled turning to a snarl. The man shouted, staggered, fell back, crashing into the mud. The rifle skidded out of reach. Eli ran. He didn't look back. He just moved. Branches whipped his face. His breath burned in his throat. The only sound behind him was the struggle, the man yelling. Bishop snarling, snapping jaws. Then a single, sharp yelp. Eli froze. Bishop? Nothing. Panic surged through him. He turned to go back. But a shadow moved from the trees. Bishop. Limping, soaked in mud but alive. He came straight to Eli. Nudged his leg. Then turned his head. Blood on his fur. Not his. Eli didn't ask what happened. Bishop had done what he had to do. They had to keep moving. There was still so much they didn't understand, but one thing was now clear. The man knew Bishop, knew his training, knew his past, and if Bishop remembered something from long ago, it was dangerous enough to kill for. The rain had slowed by the time Eli and Bishop reached the edge of the cabin clearing. The porch was gone, reduced to shattered boards and tangled branches from the fallen tree. Windows were blown out, and the tin roof curled up like a torn page. Yet the trapdoor, hidden behind the cabin, remained untouched, undisturbed, like it was waiting for them. Bishop limped slightly but moved with purpose. Whatever happened back in the woods had left its mark. But his mission wasn't finished. Eli felt it in every step. They weren't running anymore. They were going back, to find the truth. Eli pulled up the trapdoor again. This time, it opened easier, as if it, too, was ready to talk. They descended, back into the cold, the stillness, the silence. But this time, Eli knew where to go. He led Bishop through the short hallway, around the collapsed wall, and to the chest they had opened earlier. The documents were still there, dry, somehow, preserved in a watertight casing. Eli reached for them, spreading each one across the dirt floor. Blueprints, tactical diagrams, coded messages, most of it unreadable to him. But then, near the bottom, he found a photograph. Curled at the edges, yellowed. He ran his fingers across it. Two men in uniform, one of them unmistakably his grandfather. The other, Eli didn't know, but Bishop did. The dog's ears flattened. He lowered his head and let out a quiet whine. "Who is that?" Eli asked softly. He flipped the photo. Two names scribbled in fading ink. Colonel Henry Moore, R.J. Hastings. Eli's breath caught. R.J. The initials on the tag. The man in the woods. The hunter. Beside the photo, a smaller file, labeled Operation Emberline. It was brittle, folded tightly, sealed with a wax stamp half broken by time. Eli carefully opened it. Inside, a report, dense with jargon, but one section stood out, typed in bold. Subject: Bishop, K9112. Handler: Moore, H. Status: active. Notes: exceptional tracking. Reacts to coded sense. Final mission ended prematurely due to breach in command integrity. Reassigned. Compartmentalized. Compartmentalized? He read it again. Final mission ended prematurely due to breach in command integrity. Bishop hadn't just been retired for injury. He had been taken off the field, silenced. Because he knew something. Or someone. Eli stared blankly into the dark. Everything was starting to align. Bishop had led them here not out of instinct, but memory. This place, these files, the buried chest, it was all part of something his grandfather had hidden to protect him. And the man in the woods, R.J. Hastings, hadn't come to chase them. He had come to finish what was left undone. Suddenly, Bishop barked. Just once. Not at Eli. Toward the back wall. Eli followed the sound with his cane. The wall was stone, solid, but as he tapped along it, the sound changed, hollow in one section. A panel? He pressed his weight against it. It groaned, then shifted. Behind it, a second compartment. Small, black metal box, locked. But this time, there was a key taped beneath the photo of his grandfather. It fit perfectly. Inside the box, one cassette tape, labeled in pencil. If something happens to me. Eli held it to his chest. He didn't have a cassette player. Not yet, but he knew where to find one, in Grandpa's desk drawer. The emergency radio had one built in, and he suddenly understood why his grandfather had always said, "If I don't come home one day, ask Bishop, he'll know where to go." Eli turned to the dog. "We're almost there." "Huh?" Bishop wagged his tail once. No bark, just steady eyes. Eyes that had seen war, betrayal, and now, justice. The cabin was dark when Eli and Bishop returned. The power had long since failed. Only the flicker of the emergency lantern cast shadows along the walls, stretching over the torn curtains and broken window panes. Eli moved carefully, wet boots squishing on the warped floorboards. His hands trembled, not from cold, but anticipation. In his jacket pocket, the cassette felt heavier than it should have. Not just tape and plastic, but truth. Bishop followed silently. No growls, no whines, only calm, alert steps, as if he, too, knew the moment had come. Eli found the cassette player in the drawer beneath the radio, just like Grandpa always said. It was old, scratched, but still working. The radio crackled with static when he flipped the switch. He slid in the tape, pressed play. For a moment, nothing. Then the faint click of recording. And finally, a voice. "Eli, if you're hearing this, I'm not coming home." The boy froze. The voice was his grandfather's. Steady, measured, a little hoarse, like he'd been sitting in the cold too long. But it was him. "You were never meant to be part of this. I tried to keep it buried. For your safety. For everyone's. But I should have known." Bishop remembers. The dog lifted his head. Ears flicking. "Back in '89, I was part of something called Operation Emberline. Officially, classified recon. And officially, it was cleanup, cover-ups. We were sent in after something had already gone wrong. Your father, my son, was part of the team, too. He died because of it. Not in that car crash they told you about." Eli's stomach clenched. He found something. Proof that Hastings had gone rogue. That he'd been using military assets for his own black market operation, selling weapons. Intel, even people. We tried to stop him. But command buried it, labeled it internal misconduct, dismissed us all. Bishop was there. He saw it all. And that made him dangerous. Eli felt the weight of the metal tag in his pocket again. His hands curled into fists. "I faked Bishop's injuries, smuggled him out, trained him to stay quiet. But dogs don't forget. And now, I think Hastings is coming back. He never stopped hunting what we buried. That's why I left the vault. The photos, the documents, the tape. If anything happens to me, you take Bishop, and you get to the press. Get to someone who will listen. Because if Hastings finds that vault, he won't stop." The tape crackled. "Eli, you are braver than I ever was. And Bishop, if you're still listening. Old boy, thank you. You've done more for this country than any medal could ever show. Stay safe, both of you. Finish what we couldn't." Click. Silence. Eli sat still for a long moment. He didn't cry. Not yet. He just breathed. His father hadn't died by accident. His grandfather had lived with that weight for years. And Bishop, this dog had carried the truth without a voice. Without a word, all this time. Across wars. Across generations. Until now. Thunder rumbled again in the distance. Then a second sound. A truck. Approaching. Slow. Tires crunching gravel. Bishop growled. Teeth bared. Eli stood and grabbed the tag. The tape. And the folder of documents. He slipped them into his backpack and turned to Bishop. "We're not running anymore," he whispered. We finish this. The truck stopped outside. A door slammed. Footsteps on the porch. Eli tightened his grip on the cane. And Bishop stepped forward, not to attack, but to defend. Because now, they both knew the truth. And they weren't afraid anymore. The front door creaked. Heavy footsteps echoed on the warped floorboards of the porch, measured. Deliberate. The rain had stopped, but the cabin still groaned under the weight of the storm that had passed, and the one still to come. Eli stood in the center of the room, his fingers tied around the cane in one hand, Bishop's leash in the other. His backpack, stuffed with the tape, the documents, and the dog tag, rested on his shoulders like armor. The doorknob turned. Click. Then, slowly, the door opened, and there he was. R.J. Hastings, older than the photo, but unmistakable. Cold eyes, military posture, rifle slung over one shoulder, and the same thin smirk Eli had imagined when listening to the tape. He stepped in, boots dripping on the wooden floor. "Well," he said softly, looking from Eli to Bishop. "You've been busy." Bishop growled, body tense like a spring. He stood in front of Eli now, a living shield. But Hastings didn't flinch. "I won't hurt the boy," he said calmly. "I'm not a monster." Eli didn't speak. Hastings took a slow step forward. "I just need what you took from the vault. That's all. Give it to me, and you walk out of here." Bishop barked once, short and sharp. Hastings looked down at the dog. "You always were dramatic." Eli found his voice. "You killed my father." The words hung in the air. Hastings tilted his head. "No, your father made choices. Choices that got him killed. You think I pulled the trigger? I didn't have to. He disobeyed orders. He stepped into a mess that didn't belong to him. Just like you." Eli stepped forward, just slightly. "And what about my grandfather? You think he didn't know you'd come back?" Hastings' smile faded. Eli pressed on. "He knew everything. That's why he left the documents. The tape. Bishop, you didn't bury the truth." "He did." Hastings sighed. "Your grandfather was a fool. He thought the truth would protect people. But truth is just weight. The kind that drags people down." Then he shifted slightly, his hand moving toward the rifle strap. In an instant, Bishop lunged. Teeth flashed. The rifle dropped. Hastings staggered back as Bishop slammed into him, knocking him into the wall. The man cried out, grabbing at the dog's harness, trying to shove him off. Eli didn't move. He couldn't see much, just motion, sound, force. But then, a shot. Boom. Silence. Eli's heart stopped. "Bishop?" The dog padded back to him a moment later, muddy, scratched, but alive. Behind him, Hastings groaned on the ground, clutching his shoulder, blood leaking through his jacket. "You little," he hissed, trying to reach for the rifle. Eli spoke quietly. "It's over." He pulled out the dog tag and dropped it onto the floor between them. Hastings stared at it, then up at Bishop, who stood over him, growling low, eyes locked. "You were never just a dog." The man muttered, "You remembered." Bishop barked once. Final. Outside, sirens began to wail in the distance. The ranger station had picked up the emergency signal from the radio. Help was coming. But more importantly, so was the truth. Eli crouched beside Bishop, wrapping his arms around him. "You did it," he whispered. "You brought us home." The storm had passed. But the real story, Bishop's story, was just beginning to be told. 3 weeks later, the cabin was quiet again. But this time, not because of fear or secrets. Because everything had finally come to light. The tape had gone to federal investigators. The documents, the photos, and the sealed Operation Emberline files were authenticated and released to the press. The country learned what Eli already knew deep in his heart, that his grandfather had risked everything to protect the truth. And that his father had died exposing corruption that ran through the highest levels of command. The man known as R.J. Hastings was taken into federal custody that same night. He never spoke another word publicly. But it didn't matter. The world already knew. What they didn't expect was how the public would respond, not just to the scandal, but to the hero who unearthed it. Bishop. The photos went viral. A German shepherd standing in front of a broken cabin. His fur matted with mud and rain. Eyes sharp with purpose. People didn't just see a dog. They saw a soldier. A guardian, a witness. Reporters came. Networks offered interviews. But Eli said no to most of them. He didn't want fame. He just wanted justice for his family, and to honor the silent companion who had never left his side. One morning, Eli was invited to Washington, D.C., not for an interview, but a ceremony. He stood on the steps of the Capitol in a neatly pressed suit, cane in one hand, Bishop's leash in the other. Bishop sat beside him, calm and alert, wearing a service vest with a silver star sewn onto the side. A general approached the microphone. Today, we recognize not only the bravery of those who serve, but the memory of those who were silenced. And we honor a K-9 who carried that memory across decades, until the truth could speak for itself. Then the general bent down and clipped something onto Bishop's vest. The Medal of Valor. Eli knelt beside him, whispering, "You deserve more than medals." Bishop just licked his hand. Back in the town, the old trail near the cabin was renamed Bishop's Way. And on a small plaque, right beneath the trailhead sign, were the words Eli had written himself. He remembered what others forgot. He guarded what others abandoned. He waited until the storm was right, to speak without words. Eli never stopped telling the story. Not because it was tragic, but because it was true. He spoke at schools, veteran events, K-9 training academies. He told the world about the war dog who never stopped serving, even when the mission was over. Even when no one believed him. Bishop lived 3 more years. Long enough to see spring come again to the cabin trail. Long enough to walk beside Eli as he grew stronger, steadier, his cane eventually forgotten in the corner of the room. And when the time came, Bishop passed peacefully on the porch of the very cabin where it all began. With Eli's hand on his back and the tag still on his collar. They buried him beneath the big pine overlooking the ridge, right where he stood that day after the storm. A quiet sentinel, watching, remembering. And so, the storm passed, but the truth remained. Bishop didn't just save Eli. He saved a story, a legacy, a promise buried beneath years of silence. Through memory, instinct, and unshakable loyalty, this retired K-9 hero reminded us all that justice has no expiration date, and that sometimes it takes 4 paws and a silent stare to bring it to light. Thank you for watching this powerful true story of courage, loss, and redemption. If Bishop's journey moved you as much as it moved us, we invite you to share this story with someone who believes in the quiet strength of loyalty and the power of remembering. If you'd like to see more real-life stories where animals become heroes, don't forget to checkmark subscribe to Heroes for Animals. Thumbs up like this video if it touched your heart. Speech balloon comment below and let us know what part of Bishop's story stayed with you the most. Your voice helps these stories live on and keeps the legacy of heroes like Bishop alive. See you in the next story. Paw.